In the tranquil resort town of Yeysk, known for its bustling summer crowds and serene outskirts, a shocking event rippled through the community. Early one morning, in a quiet neighborhood far removed from the town's lively center, 54-year-old entrepreneur Evgeny Repnikov was found dead in his home, a grim discovery made by builders arriving for work. The respected and well-liked local businessman had been shot, his body bearing the marks of numerous stab wounds, a brutal end that sent shockwaves through the neighbors who knew him as a sober, scandal-free man dedicated to supporting children's organizations. Repnikov's life, largely solitary following an early divorce and devoted to raising his daughter Irina, was marked by his generosity and commitment to his community. However, his kindness was met with a violent betrayal, puzzling investigators who arrived to find a lack of witnesses in the tight-knit settlement. Irina, now grown and living separately, grappling with the challenges of single parenthood and the loss of her job due to frequent absences, was devastated by the news of her father's death. Her condition at the time made it impossible for the officers to glean any insights, despite the previously strong relationship she shared with her father, now strained by distance and life's demands. The investigation revealed a life taken in a robbery gone awry, with signs of a desperate search for something valuable within Repnikov's home. Yet, in a town where strangers stand out, the identity of the bold criminals remained elusive. Repnikov's financial dealings, marked by a list of debtors due to his money-lending practices, opened a new avenue of suspicion. Could the motive be linked to unpaid debts rather than stolen valuables? Amidst the speculation, a new lead emerged pointing to Repnikov's personal life. Known as a desirable bachelor, his relationships with various women came under scrutiny, especially when a lover living with him until just before the murder vanished without a trace. With no money found in the house post-murder, suspicion turned toward those closest to him in life, including his daughter. Irina Repnikov, emerging from her grief, spoke to detectives about her recent efforts to change her personal fortunes, including consulting a fortune teller who promised a solution to her loneliness and familial strife. The fortune teller's uncanny knowledge of her life and the provision of a mysterious contact named Edgar suggested a turning point in her quest for happiness. Yet her father's murder cast a long shadow over her future. Among the many green spaces cherished by the residents of Yeysk, Pushkin Square stands out as the favorite. It was here, in this beloved spot, that Irina, after gathering her courage, agreed to meet the enigmatic stranger who had called her. This meeting marked the beginning of a series of events that seemed to bring a fortune teller's predictions to life. They met, and Irina found herself falling for him. Edgar Gadzenko appeared to be the man of Irina's dreams, a young entrepreneur, caring, generous, and importantly, a single father dreaming of building a strong family. Their relationship blossomed, and Repnikova couldn't believe her luck. She was happier than she had ever been, feeling as if everything was finally falling into place. However, life had another twist in store for her: the tragic death of her father. Tears clouded her eyes as she spoke of Evgeny Repnikov, but detectives noted something odd in her demeanor. She seemed too eager to show her innocence and grief, yet her interest in who would inherit her father's estate raised suspicion. Despite her positive reputation among colleagues and her boss, investigators decided to take a closer look at Repnikova's circumstances. Everyone who knew Irina emphasized her constant need for money. If her father had been supporting her, why was she borrowing money from others? Those familiar with Irina revealed an answer. At her real estate job, it was known that her father invested heavily in land to build and sell houses. Yet, he wasn't generous with his daughter, believing in the importance of earning one's living and helping Irina without compromising his principles. This stance frustrated Irina. though many friends and colleagues shared her view. Detectives drew their conclusions. Repnikova had a strong motive for murder. However, interacting with her raised a different question. How could the seemingly fragile and nervous Irina commit such a heinous act? And could she be guilty despite having a solid alibi, as she was in the hospital on the night of the murder? The investigation revealed she had left her hospital room that night. Irina reacted indignantly to the suspicion and insisted she had only briefly stepped out and stayed on hospital grounds, further implicating herself with her lies. A roommate confirmed Irina returned in the early morning, but the damning evidence was her mobile phone. Call records placed her phone in the village of Plotovoye, where her father was murdered. Faced with the evidence, Irina confessed to the murder, still portraying herself as a victim. She told investigators about her hardships and her father's unfairness. However, detectives had gathered information showing Irina exploited her father's kindness and had blackmailed him. She confessed that a meeting with a fortune teller, who introduced her to her lover, Edgar Gadzenko, changed everything. Edgar convinced her that her father was a monster for not financially supporting her. He suggested creating a situation where her father would have to see her regularly, altering their relationship. But when Evgeny Repnikov remained healthy, Edgar proposed a darker plan involving acquaintances who could make her father ill. Irina followed Edgar's instructions but panicked, fearing she might be suspected if her father died. Learning of her disobedience, Edgar became furious and then demanded 2 million rubles as payment for the drugs. Edgar suggested borrowing the amount from her father, knowing well Evgeny would never give Irina such a sum. He convinced her to commit fraud by replacing real money with counterfeit. She agreed, setting off a chain of events leading to tragedy and her ultimate confession. Several days after a mysterious swap at his home, Yevgeny Repnikov discovered the deceit and immediately suspected his daughter's involvement. Consumed by rage, he confronted Irina, causing a scene, assaulting her, and demanding everything be returned by the next day. Terrified, Irina sought refuge with Edgar, who, upon hearing of the ordeal, vowed to protect her and punish the offender. Inspired by Edgar's gallantry, she agreed to his plan to take even more money from her father as compensation for her suffered indignities. Confident she would remain above suspicion, as everyone believed she was hospitalized, Irina was sure her brief absence would go unnoticed. At midnight on May 29th, Edgar called her mobile. She stealthily descended from the 4th floor of the hospital, climbed through a window near the entrance, and met Edgar in a car across the street, previously seen driven by Gadzenko. Arriving in the fruitful village, they parked near her father's house. Irina, along with Gadzenko and Samoylov, approached the home, leaving Kozhenenko in the car. She knocked on the gate. Her father emerged. Presenting Edgar, she declared, "Father, Edgar has brought the money." Her father opened the door, with Gadzenko entering first, shotgun in hand. Realizing the danger, Repnikov tried to fend off the intruders, grabbing a stool, but Gadzenko shot him. Despite his injury, the robust Repnikov continued to resist until Gadzenko's accomplice finished him with a knife. All the while, his only daughter watched the brutal attack from a distance. After the violence ceased, the accomplices searched for valuables. Irina returned to the hospital and fell asleep as if nothing had happened. Gadzenko and Samoylov wasted no time returning to the scene to eliminate any evidence pointing to them. Edgar Gadzenko and his friend Sergei Samoylenko were apprehended following Irina Repnikova's confessions. Samoylenko admitted his guilt, whereas Gadzenko remained silent about his actions. The primary suspect in the murder of 54-year-old entrepreneur Yevgeny Repnikov became his only daughter. Edgar Gadzenko's mother still refuses to believe her son is a murderer. In court, she attempted to convince everyone present that Irina was the sole person responsible. However, the evidence was sufficient for the court to find Gudzenko guilty of murdering Yevgeny Repnikov. Irina Repnikova, a mother of two, couldn't stop crying on the stand. But her tears weren't seen as remorse for a father's loss. For her greed, which led to her father's death and the loss of her children, she was sentenced to 10 years in prison. Her lover, Edgar Gudzenko, tried to persuade the court and investigators of his innocence, blaming Irina entirely. Nonetheless, he received a 17-year sentence. Don't miss new stories on the channel. Subscribe, like, and leave your comments. Your opinion matters to me.